What are some options available when you want to return multiple values back from a method? I'm going to go through 3 examples for you here. We're going to go through ref, out, and utilizing tuples. So let's first go through ref. So when you're utilizing the ref keyword, you want to have ref, or reference is pretty much what it's, the reason why it's called ref, in the signature. And also, when you're calling that method, you need to have ref in front of the variable that you're passing. So what happens with the ref keyword is everything that happens to that variable in the method, it'll be reflected in the calling method. So if we were to run this right here, you'll see we're passing in 1 as the username, so it'll come into this block right here, and these will be the values that will be set to these ref keywords. What we have here is Joe, Smith, and 15. So these values don't get passed back, right? They're not returned because it's void, but yet it's still being reflected here. So something I'd like you to notice here is you need to instantiate ref variables prior to utilizing them, or else you're going to get a compile time error. Use of unassigned local variable first name. You need to actually give it a value before utilizing it. Okay, now let's look at the out keyword. Now the out keyword is similar to the ref keyword, but there's some key differences here. So it's similar in the sense that you need to have out in the method definition itself, and you need to have it when you're calling this method. Same like the ref keyword, right? So we can compile this, it'll run, it'll have these values here when we run it, just like last time, Joe Smith 15, right? We're passing in 1 as the user ID. It'll come into this if block, and there it is. That's what gets displayed. Now, some of the key differences here you can see is that if I give this a value, it'll give you a compile time warning, right? So you can compile this, it'll compile, and you won't get any errors during runtime. But it's saying unnecessary assignment of value to first name. Now, why is that? And the reason is that the out keyword is saying that I guarantee that I'm going to instantiate this value in this method prior to returning control back to the calling method. So that means if I were to comment all this out right here, you get a compile time error. It's saying first name must be assigned before control leaves the current method, right? So you need to actually give it, you have to instantiate it. You may have seen the out keyword before with try parse. So let me give you an example here. Let's say we had a string value and I want to try to convert that string to an integer. So what is happening here? We're using the out keyword, so that means that this method here is going to instantiate this value. And what it's going to try to do is take this value here, this string value, and attempt to convert it to a string, to an integer. And we'll see here. And we'll see here that it's able to successfully convert that to an integer. And then, of course, right line converts it back to a string, but it's able to successfully make that conversion. So you may have also seen it written in this way, right? So what is this? So you're actually doing an inline declaration in the method when you're calling the method, which allows you to not have to have a separate line to declare it, which makes a lot of sense because the out keyword is once again saying that this method is guaranteeing it's being instantiated. So just put it right in the method call. All right, so if we go back to our example, we can take all these out, All right. And actually have an inline declaration for all these, and this will run Joe Smith 15. All right, the last way we're going to talk about here is tuple. So to utilize a tuple as a return value, this is the syntax we have here. So we're identifying first name, last name, and department number, 2 strings in an integer. Right? Here we're declaring a tuple employee that has these properties. We're setting those values here, and then we're returning that single entity employee, and then here you go, just like a class with properties, which it makes it very clean that way. So if we run this, you'll see we've got the same outcome here, Joe Smith 15. All right, so let's talk about some of these details here. So this makes it very convenient so that you have a single value that's being returned, and within there it contains all of these properties, which makes it nice and clean. This is actually my preference in returning multiple values because it keeps the method signature very consistent. So values in the parameter list are things that the method actually needs to complete its task, and not cluttering it up with return values with ref and out keyword. There's another way that you can write this here. You can actually give you this suggestion. So what this does here is, instead of having employee and then having the properties off of that being used, you can actually bring it directly to variables that are used. I mean, some situations you actually want to have those related values together in, like for example, was employee, but sometimes it's easier just to break it out into its own variables. So these are ways you can return multiple values from a method. I find that I use tuples more than ref and out keywords, mainly because of the cluttering of the parameters being passed in and just making it easier to read and easier to work with. All right, hope you liked the video.